These are stories where love meets betrayal. Stories that make you see life a little differently.
The rain had been falling for days. Not the kind that cleans the air, the kind that settles in and refuses to leave. It turned the city gray, muted, almost honest. I noticed it the morning I found the folder. It wasn't hidden, that was the strange part, just lying there on his desk, between receipts and old notes, as if it belonged, as if I had already seen it 100 times before. I hadn't. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't suspicious. I was looking for batteries. That's how betrayals often begin, not with doubt, but with normality. The folder was thin, too thin for something that felt heavy the moment I touched it. Inside were documents, printed emails, contracts. My name appeared several times, so did his, and a third one. An address I didn't recognize, a city we had never talked about. The rain tapped softly against the window while I stood there reading words that rearranged my understanding of the last 3 years. He had bought an apartment 6 months ago. Not with me, not for us, for himself. I sat down slowly, not because I felt weak, but because my body needed time to catch up with my mind. We had talked about moving, about waiting, about later. Later had already happened, just without me. The rain grew heavier. I told myself there must be an explanation, a practical one, a boring one, but my chest knew better. When he came home that evening, he kissed my cheek like always, hung his coat, asked about my day. I answered every question correctly, calmly, precisely. The folder stayed where it was, between us, unspoken. At dinner, he talked about work, deadlines, colleagues. Not once did he mention the city whose name echoed in my head like a quiet alarm. I watched him carefully, not searching for guilt, but for distance, and I found it. In the way he smiled half a second too late, in the way his eyes drifted away when I mentioned plans, in the way he said we less often than before. After dinner, the rain swallowed the streetlights outside. The world reduced itself to water and shadows. I might need to travel more in the next months, he said casually. There it was. Not a confession, a preparation. For work? I asked. He nodded, too quickly. Temporary is what people say when permanence is already decided. That night, I lay awake listening to the rain trace invisible paths across the glass. I realized something that terrified me more than infidelity ever could. He hadn't replaced me. He had reorganized his life and simply left me out of the equation. The betrayal wasn't emotional. It wasn't physical. It was structural. And I was living in a life that no longer fully included me.
The rain became constant after that day. Not heavy, not dramatic, just steady, like a presence that refuses to leave. After the discovery, nothing exploded. No arguments, no confessions, no sudden endings. And that was the cruelest part. He didn't deny anything. He didn't confirm it either. Instead, he chose something far more effective. He minimized me. It started with small corrections. "You're remembering it wrong." "I never said that." "You're too emotional lately." His voice was calm, almost caring, and slowly I began to doubt myself. The rain outside blurred the city, and inside our apartment, my thoughts began to blur too. I replayed conversations in my head, checked messages, looked for proof of my own memories. But memory, I learned, is fragile when someone you trust keeps rewriting it. He still came home, still ate dinner with me, still asked about my day, but my presence no longer shaped his life. I was adjacent to it. He made plans without mentioning them, changed routines without explanation, shared jokes that had nothing to do with me. And when I noticed, he smiled. "You're imagining things." The rain pressed against the windows, as if trying to get inside. I started keeping notes, not because I wanted evidence against him, but because I needed proof for myself. Times, words, silences, and with every entry, a pattern emerged. He wasn't betraying me by leaving, he was betraying me by staying, and slowly erasing my significance. One evening, he talked about a future trip, a place I had always wanted to see. "With whom?" I asked quietly. He paused, just a fraction of a second. "Oh, I assumed you wouldn't want to go." That pause told me everything. The rain that night was relentless. I sat on the floor, notebook in my lap, listening to it fall, and I realized something chillingly clear. He wasn't choosing someone else over me. He was choosing a version of his life where I didn't exist, and he expected me to accept that quietly. I closed the notebook, not in defeat, but in decision, because this kind of betrayal doesn't end with confrontation. It ends with reclaiming reality. And I was done letting him decide which version of me was real. The rain kept falling, patient, unforgiving, and for the first time in a long while, I was ready to speak. The rain didn't surprise me anymore. By then, nothing did. I was sitting at the kitchen table when he came home. No tension in the air, no raised voices waiting to explode, just quiet. He stopped when he saw me, not because he sensed danger, but because he wasn't used to seeing me still. "You're home early," he said. "I didn't leave," I answered. The rain pressed against the windows, steady and patient, like time. He took off his coat slowly, carefully, as if movements alone could control consequences. "You've been distant," he said, not accusing, testing. I nodded. I stopped explaining myself. That unsettled him more than anger ever could. For months, the betrayal hadn't lived in another body, not in secret messages, not in hotel rooms. It lived in decisions he made without me, in plans where I appeared only as background, in a future he edited quietly while still calling it ours. I didn't mean to hurt you, he said. I know, I replied. That's what makes it worse. He frowned, waiting for more. I stood up and walked to the window. The city blurred by rain looked honest. At least, it didn't pretend to be something else. You replaced me, I said calmly. Not with a person, with a version of life where I was unnecessary. That's not true, he said quickly. It is, I answered. You just didn't announce it. Silence stretched between us, heavy, unavoidable. I told him everything then, not emotionally, not dramatically. I told him what I saw, what I felt, when I stopped missing him even when he was gone. That was the moment he understood. Not that he had betrayed me, but that he had lost me long before noticing. You should have said something, he whispered. I did, I replied. Every time you didn't listen. The rain softened slightly, as if even it knew the ending had already been written. I packed nothing that night. I didn't need to. What I left behind wasn't objects, it was access. I won't fight you, I said at the door. I won't punish you. I just won't stay where I've been erased. He didn't stop me. That told me everything. Outside, the rain touched my skin gently. Not cold, not cruel, just real. And for the first time in a long while, so was I.
Sometimes pain doesn't come from enemies, but from the ones we trusted the most. Maybe that's how life teaches us to see the truth. Could you forgive such a betrayal? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. More stories are coming, stories that will touch your heart.